Hey, what's up, fellas? My delicious female fans. Steve Delicious here with something different on the Steve Delicious Tech channel. A bit of an introductory video. We're going to take a look at the Morrow Pivot 2. Took me a long time to find this, and if you're a Computer Chronicles fan from back in the day, you might recognize this particular piece of hardware. Very interesting. Lots of features in it. Kind of simple. 1985, so we're going to go over a couple of the specs real quick, but basically, for this video, I want to show it off, show you around the unit. We're going to take you in a little bit closer to it. We're going to power it up, which is an adventure. I'll explain that in a second. And then we're going to go over kind of what I want to do with it and any requests that you might have on something this old. It's got a 1200 baud modem, which you can just imagine is blazing fast, as well as an 8088 in it, okay? DOS, all that fun stuff from 1985. We'll go over the specs in a second. But the main feature of this particular unit, we're going to have the man himself, George Morrow, explain it to you about why this particular machine is unique.
It does have one thing that the rest of the machines don't have, and that's a 5¼ inch disc. Either you don't have a disc like the HP people and they expect to carry your stuff around in ROM, or they have 3½ inch discs. Now, if you go out and buy Lotus for $500, you'll find that if you don't have a pair of scissors with you, you're going to have to spend another $300 on your 3½ inch version.
That's right, you heard him correct. Not one, but two 5¼ inch floppy drives. And you may be laughing, because even though it's 1985 and he's dissing 3½ inch drives, the reason why this was licensed for Zenith and was sold a ton of units to the IRS and other things is because of the practical nature of the 5¼ inch drive at that time. People, that's what they had their software on. So as silly as it sounds, and he says, unless you're taking a scissor to your software and putting in your 3½ inch drive, it did have some practical merit to it. And it still has the original, I love this thing. This still has the original protectors, so when you're transporting it around or you're whatever, you're not hitting the read heads or anything like that. You're not messing around with the drives. We'll take a quick spin around it, but obviously you can have your program here, you can system, whatever you need. Let's take a spin around the unit itself. We've got your 25 pin serial, as well as your two phone jacks. One of them is the like the handset jack. That was going to blank on me. Let's take a look at what the actual term on that was. I have to look that up. But you got your regular RJ45, and then you got your other one that's for the handset. I guess you use that as a fax or something along those lines. So you got your two ports here. You got your parallel and your 25 pin serial. You also have the expansion bus, which there were certain items that you could plug right into there and get various RAM and additional memory placed into there. You also had spots for an RGB monitor, which I believe would have been a CGA, EGA or CGA at the time. No VGA on this particular unit. And also you could take the back off, because for the programmers like the IRS, I believe you could put in custom ROMs. You could change stuff out. Obviously, there's a chip there, and you can do some internal repairs to the unit, just this handy door. It was actually a pretty neat design. So you got the Morrow stuff here. We'll bring that in for people to see. Right there, Morrow Designs, a little handwritten model on the back. Special mode. Then we come around to the side of the unit. We've got the power outlet here. We got where you plug it in. We'll get to that in a second. That is incredibly finicky. On off, which we'll get to as well. And then your contrast for the screen, because wow, it's a you're going to need the contrast. You're also going to need a incredibly bright light sitting right behind you, because it is backlit, but not quite super twist LCD in 1985. So you're dealing with the LCD that literally has a 10-degree viewing angle of center. If you're within 10 degrees of center, you'll see it just fine with the backlight. If you're not, it's not even going to look like there's any characters on the screen. Also, this one, now I'm not saying this is light. This is still about 25 some odd pounds, just like this, 20 pounds. But you can see down into here, this is where the battery would go. Now, the cool part about this particular unit is, at this point, it took me however long just to find a Morrow Pivot to buy in the first place. So the chances of me finding new old stock Morrow Pivot 2 batteries are probably non-existent. But the cool part about this is that battery bay is actually for an old Panasonic battery. So if you could find, if someone knows, if someone has the stats on which Panasonic from 1980 whatever that particular unit takes, you probably could get one of those repacked at this point and have yourself a perfectly good functioning Morrow Pivot battery. So we've talked about the screen. We're going to turn it on. I'm going to talk about the power supply next. We're going to see what you can see here. We're going to show you the DOS shell and the few things that you can do with it. And then we're going to wrap up. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Because I want to do this part before I actually plug it in. Because it makes that certain high-pitched electrical noise, that really good noise you get right before you die. Because if you were to see this particular... I mean, this is some sort of metal box. This is the power supply for this. It is gigantic. And it makes a noise. You plug it in, it makes a noise until you complete the circuit and plug it into the portable. So I'm going to go ahead and show you this ahead of time. Because quite frankly, once this is plugged in, I don't want to be touching this. And it's quite the thing that if you were to get something like this today, DC, that good DC output, if you were to get something like this today, you would, it sounds unshielded. I don't even know if that's possible for back in the day. It's pretty horrible. It's pretty horrible. So we're going to plug this in, and then we'll be back with the power on for the Pivot 2. Okay, so let's talk a minute about the keyboard, because as you know, today you get the chiclet keyboards, you get all the nonsense keyboards, you get those ridiculous butterfly keyboards that Apple finally found out that they made a huge mistake on, and they decided to do away with and fix and go back to something a little bit more like a Switch. But this thing, not quite mechanical, but still giving you that good feedback. Very nice to type on. Very nice unit to type on. This particular keyboard, pretty good shape. The unit itself is in really nice shape, especially given the fact that it's 35 years old, hasn't been used in quite some time. A couple of the keys not working, but half the keyboard wasn't working when I first got it, but I just kept kind of hitting away at it, and eventually the contacts made it happen again. I don't know if there's some dirt underneath them, if whatever was blocking the membrane, whatever happened, but I was able to get some of them working again. I think that might be the case with some of the other ones, so I'll just keep working on that. I am going to eventually take all of these off. It actually is really easy. It's like a regular keyboard today that you get on your desktop. Pop them all off, clean them, clean underneath there, and hopefully we have a perfectly nice functioning Morrow Pivot 2 keyboard. These are the function keys, membrane keys, as well as the hotkeys, the shortcuts for the shell itself. So we're going to pull this up a little bit, the camera, so don't get too jarred. And we're going to turn this on. Here we go. The boot of the Morrow Pivot 2 from 1985. Oh, that fantastic screen. Look at that contrast. Let's see what we can do here. It actually looks okay for me. I'm going to make sure it looks okay on screen. All right, we're going to go with that. That's probably the best looking one for you guys at home. Thankfully, there's not too much of a difference between the refresh rate and battery dead, system halted. Of course the battery's dead. There's no battery in it. This is the first time. This is the first time. I booted this a bunch of times. It's the first time I'm getting this particular error. Yes, I know. Battery's dead. Let's try this again. I'm not even going to cut it. The Morrow Pivot 2 from 1985. Take two. Come on. You know you want to. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. You get electricity for the first time in like 30 years. You should be thankful. There we go. And as you saw on that episode of Computer Chronicles, which I probably should just link below, this is the DOS shell that they had. You had your schedule, month, time, here, now, world calendar, all the rest of it, May 1985, still on the screen. So let's take a look at some of the things. You get your calculator, very, very fancy calculator, but, you know, perfectly full function. You've got your address book, and you can actually, I don't know for sure, you could dial out of this, though. You could dial out of this. That's why you had the second jack in the back. You could dial out of it. You could update due to certain things. You could use it as a terminal. That's kind of what I'm hoping to be able to do with it. You know, I'm hoping that there's some IRC software. I know I go into this chat, the Vintage Computer Federation. I hope it's Federation, not Foundation. Sorry, guys, if I got it completely wrong. I'm sorry. But they were talking about there's a guy that has IRC on an IBM PC Junior, which did not take a lot. So I'm hoping that at the very least I should be able to run some version of IRC, because at this point you're really not going to do a whole hell of a lot. You could put Lotus on it. Lotus 123, I think I have on 5.25 inch drive. There is Microsoft Word, I believe, or WordPerfect or something that you could run on 5.25 inch drive. So I have some stuff. There's accounting software stuff, the really fun stuff that you used to do back in the 80s, the mid to late 80s on your portable computer, that I might be able to put on here that we might try. But really, the whole function of it and the whole purpose of me even doing something with this while it still lives, which who knows how long it's going to survive getting power, after how long without being recapped or blowing something. But if it lives long enough, I want to get it on the internet. I want to get it to dial up. I want to get it into at least an IRC chat room or some sort of bulletin board that I could post to, and then I'll feel like I've done a job with the Morrow Pivot 2. So now, if you have one, do me a favor, show it to me. Put a comment below. If you have any experience with these, I'd absolutely love to hear from you, because there's not a whole lot of documentation on them. If you know of something that you might want to see with it, or might have an idea how to best get it online, leave that comment as well. So I'm completely open to what we want to do with this. And is the 3,700 bytes free on the memory. Fantastic. But I really love these old machines. They're fantastic. They're really I love the keyboard that they used to put on these portables. I love the fact that there's that tactile feedback. There's travel on the keys. I have this other thing over here that I want to do kind of the same thing with. It's the HP 95LX that runs DOS as well, DOS 3.22. And it's just something about those machines, the menus, just the way they look. It's just really cool to me. And we hit over there. It's booting. Obviously, there's nothing in the drives there, but if there were, maybe we get some software going. If you have some software you want to recommend as well, we can do that. But like I said, introductory video. Just want to show you the unit, have a look around it. Don't want to have it booted for that long because there may be smoke coming out of the back at some point. But whatever it is, if you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, with something most likely pretty old, have that Steve-alicious day.